Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. In a few moments, you'll get to hear my thoughts and feelings on episode 7 of Our Kind of People. Now if you saw my last week's review, then you already know how I felt about the episode as a whole. The storytelling was moving at lightning speed, so much so that it was a little hard keeping up with all that was going on. But I also put out a separate video explaining how I felt about the characters and the storytelling thus far for the first 6 episodes. Now in previous reviews, I typically recap the entire episode and gave my opinion on it, but for the purposes of this review, I'll just be going over the main points of the episode. So has episode 7 changed my mind about the series for the better? Stay tuned to find out. Episode 7 follows 4 main storylines: Teddy's brush with death, the introduction of Nikki's father in the mix, Tariq looking for answers about his father's death, and Alexis causing trouble in paradise. So it doesn't take long for us as the viewing audience to learn that Teddy is still alive and he had a mild heart attack. And much of Teddy's scenes throughout this entire episode come in the form of hallucinations. Teddy is communicating with his deceased older brother and talking about how life was growing up with him, the afterlife, and they talk about Angie as well. One of the interesting things that I observed during the course of this episode was how the possibility of losing Teddy has helped Angie and Leah form a bond. This was one of the few episodes that I've seen where they weren't at each other's throats, and it was refreshing to see Angie vowing to help keep Teddy's Parkinson's diagnosis a secret to help protect the Franklin legacy. But much of the time this episode is spent sharing more backstory on Nikki's father. Angie and Nate spend several scenes together during this episode. We learn that Nate was locked up for 17 years, which in my opinion is yet another parallel between the show Empire and Cookie's storyline. Nate gives Angie his journal for Nikki to read, and Angie cuts Nate's dreads, and there's definitely a lot of foreshadowing going on regarding a potential love triangle between Angie, Nate, and Tariq. But in my opinion, this whole storyline with Nikki's father is pretty senseless. It really doesn't fit the overall plot at this stage of the season, and sure, Nikki went her whole life without knowing her father, and sure, Teddy's purpose for getting Nikki's father out was to help bring Angie down. But thus far, it has had the opposite effect. Furthermore, it was nice seeing Lauren visit Nikki to convince her to give her father a chance at developing a relationship. This is a completely different Lauren from the bloodthirsty, vindictive woman we've seen in earlier episodes. Surprisingly, the episode doesn't spend much time showing Tariq's journey towards finding out more about his father's death. In this episode, Tariq pays Angie a visit to check in on her. They talk about Nikki as well as Teddy's disclosure about Tariq's father. And as I expected, Tariq doesn't believe that his father would commit suicide. Later on in the episode, Tariq visits the head of service staff at Teddy's house, and when they talk about his father, she encourages him to talk to the girlfriend of a man who knew his father well. That girlfriend happens to be Patricia, aka Aunt Piggy. Tariq meets up with her and he tries to ask her questions about her boyfriend, but Patricia plays dumb and doesn't answer any of his questions. Tariq leaves and it appears to be the end of that. And lastly, Alexis was being a thorn in the hind parts of Leah and Angie for much of this episode. Alexis is shown taking the lead on asking Leah intrusive questions about Teddy and his health. Alexis also airs out Nate's business while at a press conference that was arranged by Leah. Alexis doing this angered Nikki, who was watching the press conference at the time, and this also angered Angie, who was ready to fight anyone who messes with her family. While at the hospital, Raymond meets up with Alexis and politely tells her to back off when it comes to his family. Alexis is reluctant to do so because she views Teddy and Leah being one and the same. Angie sees Raymond getting out of Alexis's car and later confronts Raymond about it in front of Leah. The three of them are in an elevator during the conversation, and the way Angie assaults Raymond, as well as the camera movements during the scene, remind me of the video showing Solange assaulting Jay-Z. So Alexis ultimately bribes a hospital worker to break protocol and disclose Teddy's medical information in exchange for a selfie with her. The episode ends with Patricia sneaking off to Boston, Angie bringing Nikki to meet her father, and Teddy being confronted by his brother's ghost who had a bullet in his head. Overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a 6. It was one of the better episodes of the show this season because the storytelling seemed a bit more balanced than normal. The next episode doesn't air for another 2 weeks, but I am definitely looking forward to seeing how the story grows from here. So this marks the end of my review, but I'll definitely want to hear what you thought about the review or the episode in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to reply to each and every comment. But until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.